Hello, everyone. This is a new series where we get to develop an end-to-end open source system with the help of the standard community in the standard in this with the standard community, and this is where we basically try to kind of help everyone kind of see how to build end-to-end systems, how we architect a project, how we kind of help people see what are the little bits and pieces. Like everybody out there, I was just telling someone about this the other day, Crystal. Like everyone out there, especially if they go to computer science, they learn about the SDLC, software development life cycle, right? And it starts with design or requirements, but nobody says how these requirements come to be. Where do these requirements come from? Do they just drop from the sky? How do they come to be? So building projects like these and purposefying these projects and making these projects actually um, more visible. This is the in the world of YouTube, this is the boring stuff because it takes a very long time. It's not a 10-second TikTok video, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But it actually shows truly what it takes to actually develop an end-to-end system with a bunch of principal level engineers, senior engineers, people that can actually carry a project like this and deliver something useful to people. And I'm joined today by my dear brother, Christo. It's been a while. Hi,
hi,
how are
Hassan.
you?
I'm all good, thanks.
It's good to see you. I'm very pleased to see you today. You may be the highlight of the day today. I can't wait to do this with you until we get the project to a completion. But just for the engineers watching this and everybody else, really, um, I want you to just pay attention to the little details, being able to manage, not fall into the rabbit hole and start developing a spaceship when you don't even have a scooter. We're going to start with a scooter, make sure the scooter works, make sure that everyone's happy with the scooter, and then we'll build it as a motorcycle, build it as a car, and then hopefully someday a spaceship. Is that fair? Does that make sense, Crystal? I think if it's fair to do
Yeah,
that. So what are we building? What do you want to do, Crystal? I mean, here we are, two guys out there in the world, just sitting there and trying to develop software. I heard we're developing like GitFile. Do you want to give people maybe an overview, an idea what this project is? I know you're excited about it. I'm super excited about it. Go ahead.
yeah. So a while back, you've created a project called GitFile, which scans repositories on GitHub to see people's contributions. So to summarize that, if you've followed the standard and you've committed your code and PRs in a standard compliant way, then GitFile will be able to analyze and pick up your work contributions and attribute values to your contributions. So if you did a broker, you'll get a certain amount of points for the effort that you've put in for that. If you did a foundation service, you'll get a bit more points. And yeah, it tracks your progress. It analyzes what you've done. It builds a CV for you on the back of that.
Hmm.
Um, it shows where your skills lack, or where your skills is most focused. So if you want to focus on career progression, you know what areas to cover. So it's quite a nice analyzer to benefit developers that want to
So
focus on their own development.
interesting. So you're basically saying the project mainly is focusing on bringing visibility to what engineers are doing. And I want to show people the version, the first iteration of GitFile. You see Christo in here. He's at the top. Nobody can stop this guy. He's out there. But I'm no surprise that the marker here is going into the back end. He loves back end. He tries to kind of stay as much as possible away from the front end stuff. But we're gonna pull his leg in there. I'm gonna make you do Blazor one way or another. You're gonna have to do Blazor and mobile too, because this project also has a mobile iteration. So it's not just gonna be that part. But let me just show people like what this project really does. This is a question for everyone in here. Have you ever worked on a project? Like, dear software engineer, dear anybody that writes code out there, whatever you call yourself, have you ever worked on a project and then when the project got delivered, you felt like you didn't take enough credit or recognition for your work? simply because your work is just back end, so it's not really visible. It's not a fancy button or a great page or an animation or whatever. If you've ever been in that situation, this project is for people like you and me and everybody else. It's a project for people who really do some really important stuff that it doesn't get visualized. It's a recognition of your hard work by basically understanding every single bit of software that you write. I was talking to someone about this the other day, um, uh, Christo, and they thought when I introduced GitFile to them, they thought I'm counting the lines of code,
Okay.
right? Do you think that's what this project is? Are we counting the lines of code? So
No.
why it's not counting the lines of code? I mean, can't you measure the quality of an airplane by the number of screws that airplane has? I don't think so. That's not how it works, right? What this project really does, just so everyone understands, it quantifies the type of work that you're doing. For instance, if someone is building an integration with a database, is that the same as someone who's building an orchestration complex logic that talks to email service and a database and puts a message on queue and does that processing? It's not the same, right? Even though it looks like this guy opened up a pull request and this guy opened up a pull request. But the difference between this and that is massive because integrating with a database, almost everybody could do that. But building complex logic that is, rock solid validation, exceptions, and all that, that takes longer time, right? But we're not measuring it by time, Crystal, right? Because what one person what one person does in an hour, someone else could do in a day. So it's not really based on the amount of time, is it? It's more like the type of work that you're doing. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that's fair, right? Because, and by the way, I had these discussions a lot with people. Like someone would say, "Well, I spent a day," and he spent a day, right? So it's the same thing. Is it though? Right? Is it the same thing? Like let's say someone who's painting a car versus someone who's actually building the engine of that car. Big difference, right? Even though time wise, they could take about the same time. In fact, painting a car might take even longer, right? So the project will bring a lot of questions about fairness, a lot of questions about honesty, a lot of questions about what how do we actually recognize software engineers? How do we allow software engineers to actually see what they're strong, what they're really good at, what they never visit, so they can increase their efficiency? But more importantly, and I'm going to show people, I'm going to go back to the screen here. More importantly, the project will also show you, it will write your resume. Like as you are writing code, like let's say you're building a database, it will say implementing infrastructure, knows how to modify data, knows how to do code cleanup, professional in DevOps. Every time you write a piece of code, it understands what you wrote in which project and it will give you credit for it. It will write a resume for it as if you're right. And that was before ChatGPT, OpenAI. Do you remember that, Crystal? Like
Yeah.
we did this before, way before that happens. So I think incorporating the standard OpenAI library into this will be amazing. Let me pull this down here a little bit just to show people. This is your skills map. It looks at your skills and basically says, okay, what is this guy working with? Oh, it looks like Hassan does a lot of brokers and foundations, but very tiny bit. He does pages in Blazor. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at your profile actually, Christo. So
Mm.
do you see? Remember, guys, when I told you it doesn't do a lot of UI, right there, right? It gives you the chance to know what you're really good at and what you're not, and what you need to invest in. But not just that, it will go and scan all standard compliant repositories to see if there are some open opportunities that you can pick up and run with. It tells you how long in average you would take to finish a feature. Have you ever had a customer complaining, why is this task taking too long? You told me a week and it's taken 3 weeks. Well, what if I gave you a tool that actually consistently measures your performance? So when you want to develop a feature and okay, we need 2 brokers and 3 foundation services and an orchestration, that will take 11 hours, 2 hours, 5 hours. Calculate all that, give yourself a wiggle room, and you're systematically using data to actually give people an estimate to your project. Imagine this at the enterprise level, right? The enterprise level is where you basically go and say, I have this whole team. Who is the best person to work on this task in terms of investment of skill sets, but in terms of efficiency? So it's not all he said, she said, oh, she said they're good at it. That's how a lot of engineering teams unfortunately work today, right, Chris? They'll be like, oh,
Mm.
John, he's the guy when it comes to, mobile development. Well, what proves that? What shows that, right? Jaser here says, will GitFile be available for anything other than GitHub? I want to build it this way, Jaser. I want to make sure that it's abstract. So if it wants to work with GitLab, Azure DevOps, GitHub, I don't know what other source control stuff people use out there. Bitbucket, I think people use that. I want it to be abstract. So there are concepts that we're going to have to design and implement, and then mapping these concepts to different platforms and providers would be fantastic. What do you think about that, Krista? Is that like a good deal?
Yeah, that would be very nice.
So so just for everyone, that's the purpose of this project. The purpose of this project is to give people the chance and the visibility. This is way better. Okay, let me go back. This is built by engineers for engineers. Like, have you ever asked yourself, what should I learn next? What should I do to improve my skill set as a software engineer? This guy will give you the answer. This guy says, well, buddy, you never touch DevOps, and you kind of need that to build an end-to-end solution on your own, right? So that's basically what we're doing here. We're trying to give you that kind of monitor and visibility. But what's more important than all of this is that this is an open source project. So you actually literally know how we embed rules and we embed mechanisms and routines that will measure, how do we measure your performance? How do we put you on a leaderboard and say these are the best engineers that can provide certain capability? I'm also hoping that this project will open the door for a lot of people to be hired. Like, if you're looking for someone who can build clean system and whatnot, I'll go look at this board and pick up people. I already have their resumes generated. I have opportunities, hire this person, have them work on this project. So it opens a ton of doors, infinite number of doors for people to be able to grow and succeed in their career, especially if they're software engineers. Crystal, do you want to draw some pictures? Let's draw some pictures. Pictures are
Yeah,
for everyone,
sure.
right? So, so from a high level perspective, and bear with me, everyone, on this one, because this is how you kind of start brainstorming ideas and your basic. And I'm going to share all these drawings in a GitHub repository, so everyone has the ability to go back to these files and go back to these drawings. And so I'm hoping everything is clear. So from a high level perspective, we want a system, and we will call it GitFile, right? This core system has an interface that's both mobile and web. So that's a web application, that's a mobile application. So this is web, this is mobile, right? And this system, what it does is that it goes and looks up someone's public repositories. And I mean, we kind of need to have a version where people can access private repositories,
Mm.
but that's more like enterprise or professional version. We're gonna have to clear that out, right? Um, and then this system basically goes into some source repository like GitHub, right? I should probably step away from the this. Yeah, there you go. That's much better. So it goes and looks up in here. It looks up your contributions, right? And based on these contributions, it will store and process that information and cache it in a database. So that's a storage. And in that storage, it'll basically be able to render that information and give you real-time information about your contributions. The trick here is to make the contribution event-based. So every time a new commit is created or a new change is made, it pings you instead of you pinging it, like a webhook or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Does every system out there has a webhook? That's a very amazing, interesting idea. Sometimes we have to do pulling, meaning implement a system that it's like a watchdog. It kind of hits every 6 hours to pull information. But a lot of people are very impatient. They want to see their score right now and then. So it becomes very costly from an infrastructure standpoint, especially if you want to do this thing serverless. What do you think,
Mhm.
Christo? Is there anything we're missing here? Does this kind of summarize phase 0 of this project?
Yeah, I think that covers it.
I mean, we'll start with GitHub, but we'll definitely build it in components that can scale it to beyond, right? So we're starting with a scooter. It's talking to this particular source control, but we want to scale that way beyond GitHub, like Jaser was recommending. Is that fair?
Yeah,
So if I were to measure this properly, it sounds like we need three different repositories. Three different repositories. It might expand, we don't know yet. We need a repository for we need one repository called GitFile.web, right? We need or should we make it GitFile.ui.web? And then we need GitFile.ui.mobile just to
yeah,
just to kind of distinguish the, and then we need something called getfile.core.api, or I'll call it getfile core, like that. I'll call it core API because it actually has an exposure layer. Now I'm gonna cheat a little bit because this is a system that I'm remaking. There's a live version running out there. There's actually an attempt for it, an existing attempt for it. But this is a so I thought about this a lot. This is kind of 2, 3 year old project. I know for a fact that at some point in time we're gonna have an area where we need some sort of portal for admins. I know that at some point in time we're gonna need something like core watchdog. There are gonna be a bunch of components that we're gonna have to build, but we're starting simple, right? We're still just very simple. You know, things happen. Webhook hits get file API. It shares some data, stores it, and we move on from there. Is that fair?
yeah,
Yeah, right. No problem there. Cool. Cool. And I want to build this in the standard organization. You know, for people who are not familiar, we created an organization for the standard community where multiple people could manage the standard. You know, if I get hit by a bus, the community continues to move forward. There's no problem there. I know a lot of my projects in the past that were being made specifically on my, the only thing that will always stay on my personal GitHub page is the actual text, the content, like actually the standard and the standard business and the standard team and all that. But the actual materialization of this content should all stay with the standard organization. This is just to make sure that there's a particular restriction, right, on the language that is going in. There are a bunch of people like Greg Hayes, Christo, and a bunch of other people that can actually push straight to this repository, but it's limited to apostles of the standard, people who actually, you know, really implement this on the daily, and they know exactly, you know, what would happen, you know, to implement a certain capability or feature. So there's the standard organization, right? Organization GitHub. I think this is our organization right
yeah,
here, right? The standard organization. So uh, in new repository, and I'm just gonna go here and say getfile.core.api. That's one repo, right? And it's public. All of you gonna be able to look at it and do stuff with it. I'm gonna add Visual Studio here. This is for mainly for the people who are actually learning how to start from scratch on a project. Um, we don't have a standard license yet, but eventually we will. I'll talk to Greg and Christo and all these people to have the standard license, right? We want to make sure, you know, our software never ever is used to harm anybody anywhere. We want to put these restrictions. You know, it should never used for anything malicious or something that harms people in any way, shape, or capacity. Um, Calcas says, so this also looks like the project will need to take into account the tools that are used. Otherwise, its results will be inaccurate. The tools. Explain that one, Calcas. Explain this piece for me, like the tools. Well, while he's explaining this, let me create this repository. So that's one repository, fair. And I'll go create another one. Let's create another one here, repositories. new repo, and I'm gonna go here and say git file. Which one did I create? The core one, right?
Yep.
UI.web, right? So that's the web one, public, add readme. By the way, there are templates, so you don't have to go through all this drop down stuff, but it's nice to um, stuff to kind of look at and stuff like that. Okay, so there's web, and then the last one is mobile. You'll get to actually see Blazor hybrid, Blazor Maui hybrid experience, which is a great excuse. Listen, guys, in the past, I used to kind of think, oh, we should teach people with examples like demos and whatnot. I stopped doing that. I will show you a new technology specifically on a real project, right? So you're just gonna have to sit there for 5 hours, to make sure that things actually you actually learn something new.
Yep.
If you can't be patient, if you can't be patient for learning for 1 hour, you're gonna be struggling with ignorance for a lifetime. So be patient for an hour, better than a lifetime. Okay, I think I created a core and API. The last one is GitFile UI.mobile. This is also public. Add README, and we will have Visual Studio in here. Create. So we created repositories, right? We have the repositories. We're going to start working on the repositories. Um, the biggest piece about this, project is that we need, just like I always tell people, we need to define a model. Where is the model that we want to work with? Because you always start modeling and simulation, and then you can expose how these models interact with each other, right? Let's see what the chat here said. No toasters, code gen. Someone says, oh, maybe someone will use code generations and whatnot. Okay, Mabruk also saying I can't help with the Maui. So, well, you're in the community. Hop in when you have a chance. Don't just sit there in the chat and type in there. Look, if you're in the community and you want to just barge in, by all means, do it. Here's Calcas. Here's his response. So if someone uses Notepad to build an HTML page, but someone else uses Syswig, the level of development between the two will be different. Just like when someone who can leverage, yeah, that's up to them, right? That's up to them, right? In a competition, right? There are these competitions where basically you say, use whatever means you can to get to point A to point Z, right? But I have to warn about this part. The standard community really prohibits using toasters, like having something writes code for you. So if this is caught and you're actually not writing standard compliant code, it becomes a problem, right? You might get banned from the community or the repository or the whole thing. Like if you're not actually actively writing the code and investing time and effort to make sure the code is right, it could cause some problems, especially with some public repositories. But even if they did, let's just assume, and this is a good point, Christo, actually, like even if they did, they went and just generated code. I mean, the job is done. It's up to them to keep up with that, right? They might reflect some false status, but I don't think there is a system out there that's perfect. What do you think about that, Christo? Is this a problem what do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a system that's perfect. The standard evolves constantly as well, but I think if developers are serious about their skills and their career progression, they would code by hand, not rely on code gens all the time. You need to make sure that you understand the stuff. Yeah, and as you said, you need to be standard compliant. You need to follow TDD, so your PRs won't be
Yep.
committed if it's not standard compliant and doesn't follow TDD.
It's going to get a lot
Um,
of comments. It's going to get blocked. It's going to have a
yeah,
lot of trouble, right?
and in terms of GitFile as well, if you don't follow this, then the scoring is not going to go well for you.
It's not going to go well. It's going to take a longer time for you to actually get there. I think just so you guys know, like years ago, Christo built like a software that tries to generate brokers and foundation services. He got it so good to the point that it was writing a test, making it fail, and then making it pass. What's the challenges that you faced when you developed this tool, Christo, specifically?
Um, it is a nice templating tool, but
Mm,
as the standard change, you have to adapt your templates all the time.
mm,
And the tool only could get to foundation service and controllers. The moment you start doing processing service, which is you can't predict what you're going to consume in your processing service or orchestrations or coordination services. So the tool is very helpful if you quickly needed to convert an old project into a standard
Standard
compliant way.
compliant. Mm,
But
mm,
the moment you start doing something more complex, like your processing service orchestrations and coordinations, or even eventing,
get stuck.
it didn't scaffold that for you.
Yep. Yeah, it's a
Um,
scaffolding tool. It's actually a pretty good tool. I want people to go back and see. We have a recording for this, Crystal, right? We built a recording,
yeah.
or we streamed a recording for it. Yeah, it's a great tool. But once you start doing but by the way, we make the standard simple because we keep iterating over and over, but it has tons of rules, tons and tons of rules. Every single thing, how you commit, where you commit, what file, what's the name of the file, how your code looks like, what is a method with a Billy and why you need to take care of that,
Mm.
like what is cul-de-sac, how do you handle eventing, how do you test drive eventing, which is wild. It's amazing. I'll take another comment here. We have a webhook triggering logic. We can have a webhook triggering logic that creates image of graphs and texts and add them in a markdown file. You mean like look at the code, or you mean generate documentation, cyberspace? Clarify. Tell me exactly what you mean. Gregory says standard bot 5.0 is coming to help everyone as well to understand and use the standard. Yes, I need to rewrite the bot. That's right. There's only like 50 million projects that we have to work on, right? It's crazy. But anyway, so we have repositories, right? We created the repositories. This is successful and complete. I think this is because of Christo's time, and I want to make sure kind of, we have enough time to kind of think about solutions and whatnot. This session is only 30 minutes, so we're almost coming to an end here. But these repositories are complete. We have them all. They're all green. And we have an architecture. And now comes the point where we start talking about modeling and simulation. How do you mimic reality and extract reality into a simple model that you can interact with to solve real life problems, right? This is the idea. I want everyone that's watching this stream, especially if you're a part of our standard community, think about what is that model that we need to have that will store a person's contributions. Some people might say, well, we need the user ID, we need the name of the title of the PR, like is it processings, is it orchestrations, what is the title, right? We need the merge date, some people might say, right? We need the score, we need all these things. So think about it, think about like actually allow yourself to come up with wrong answers, because a lot of engineers, this, Chris, direct, a lot of people have this imposter syndrome. Well, I better be quiet and people think I'm an idiot, then open up my mouth and remove all doubt, right? Please don't think like that, especially if you're a software engineer. Say stupid things all the time, because a part of that, you don't really know where the right answer is, right? You could say that one stupid thing that will change the world. I mean, someone came with Sharknado as an idea for a movie. If they didn't open up their mouth, they wouldn't make all that profit they made out of that movie. So going back to cyberspace here, it says as in the same idea, but it's more portable. As you said, it can work as a resume. So this is the part where it builds the resume, for people out of their GitHub contributions and whatnot. That's what he meant. Cyberspace says orchestration. Orchestration is a component that we build in standard compliant systems. We'll actually build a lot of orchestrations in this project. I have a feeling, Christo. I don't know. Do you think we're going to build a lot of orchestrations? I think
I
that's what's
think
going to
so.
happen. And then Gregory says, I master stupid things. Okay, great. So anyway, we're at time. Christo, any last remarks you want to share with the community? Anything else? Any thoughts?
Um, no, I don't think I've got anything. You mentioned ideas. I wonder if we should let people put their requirements loosely in the
In the
uh,
discussions?
discussions, or
I love it. I love
in
it.
uh, um, in Discord, so that we can build a feature map or roadmap of things. So
Oh, I
what
love it.
what what was nice to have and things like that.
I love it. So if I
Um,
go into the repositories here and go to GitFile core, I could create, do you have to enable discussions? Is that how it works?
Um, yeah, we can enable that, or you can just let uh,
Let us know in the Discord channel.
yeah, Discord, or if people want to create issues there, we can convert the issue into a discussion. Um,
Okay,
I'll look at switching discussions on for us after this, and then
sounds good.
we can share that next time.
This is just another thing that I want the community to know about. There's this idea of discussions. You can create discussions, can create a project, and inside that project can create discussions. We need a wiki as well. I want this to be state of the art, documented project down to the last minute of detail. I don't care if it takes 10 years, as long as it's making reasonable progress. And every time we merge a PR, it actually lands somewhere where we have that minimum viable product that people could use today. How about that? Is that a good deal?
Yeah, sounds
Kalkas
good.
says I was blonde back when I had hair. We're all losing our hairs here. I don't know if you've noticed. Don't be fooled by this. We're all losing it. So I'm just trying to hang on to whatever is left. Thank you everyone for hopping in today on this quick session. Christo, let's organize and schedule, and let's see if we can catch each other in a longer session, and we'll start thinking about modeling and simulation. It's gonna be
Yeah,
great. We'll define a system for everyone. Um, one last thing, the project that we're building, the POC of it, I just shared the POC with Krista. I'll probably share it with everyone. Um, it was like what, 50 lines of code, probably less. When you're doing a POC, if you know what you're building, it's all just easy peasy, right? Thank you, everyone, and I'll let people kind of talk about hair on the side here. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna have this discussion. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you later. Take care. Thank you, Christo.
thanks all.